Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
We're together.
Yeah, she made it back from Seattle. It just started giving me a to-do list, like a honey-do list. And so,
like the moment I walked through the door, he was like, "Can you go away for another?"
I'm kidding. She did not do that.
I did not.
But I'm glad to have her back in studio with me. So we're
nice.
We also have a distinguished guest standing by, so we'll bring him in momentarily. So just a couple of updates. Go ahead.
Well, first off, if any of the listeners out there have never been to the Pacific Northwest, that's the west side of the Cascade Mountain Range, go. Yeah. You should experience it at one. It's so beautiful, so lush, so green. We were heading over the range to drop into Seattle, and my mom was like, "Look at the clouds spilling over the mountains." And it's like the moment we got over there, we were in a cloud the entire time, but I had the opportunity to go do some walking, and it's just like the evergreens and the ferns, and it's just gorgeous. Yeah. It's just gorgeous. So if you've never been, you should go.
I was once, and I would recommend that you visit the iconic
Pike's Place. I was about ready to say
fish
that.
market.
You
and
watch
by the way, it doesn't smell like fish.
It doesn't.
It does not smell like fish.
There's
so what does that tell
beautiful
you?
flowers too. It's iconic for its fish, but it also there's so many beautiful flowers you can get for like super cheap. So, what other announcements do we have?
A week from today, we don't have guests lined up for Friday or Monday. We're working on a few. We do have a week from today. We'll have Seth Merrifield on. He's going to talk about his decision to reduce interest rate, and so that'll be an interesting conversation. We'll try not to nerd out on the math, but we're going to talk
That's a
about
hard one, honey.
Some interesting decisions around that, which kind of loosely ties to what we want to talk to Russell about today. So. But no other particular announcements from me. We're working on some big stuff over here and continue to chip away at it and making some progress and getting some people plugged into the thing. And so,
I wanted to say, I put this back up there. Facebook user. Yeah, it's still showing you as a Facebook user. So I think that when you go into the actual posting, that there's a place that you have to click in the explanation of the post, and then it'll show your name. So
good. And then I had one other thing I wanted to share. For those of you who have not done so yet, would you take a moment and find our YouTube channel? Subscribe to the YouTube channel over there. That will be a good way to keep up with all of the content that we put out there, including the BHPH Nation TV events and so on. So
absolutely. Okay. So are we ready?
That's it. Yeah. Let's bring in Mr. Russell Moore is joining us from Texas.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. I got up and had my coffee, and I'm ready to go.
Right on.
Are you ready for Game 8 of the American League Championship Series? Or
I'm ready. All my Rangers fans were harassing me yesterday, and I just told them, well, we just started our vacation a little bit early this year, and we had to go polish our couple of trophies that we already had. So but it's a team from Texas going, and I think the team from Texas will win. That's my prediction.
Okay. Well, watch for that. I had a conversation with Mike Downey on most people know Mike Downey with Automasters over there. He's a Astros fan, lives there in the Houston area. And I said, I think that's unusual that the visiting team won every game in that series. That I don't recall seeing that myself. But yeah, that was a surprise outcome, but interesting nonetheless. But anyway, I had something else interesting I wanted to ask you. So just to help our folks get to know you and help me get to know you a little bit better, I want to know, just like, if you were stranded, Russell, on a deserted island, you didn't know how long you were going to be there, and you could take one music artist with you, one singer artist, who would you pick to have on your playlist?
Jimmy Buffett.
How about that?
Oh, and he just passed.
I just love Buffett. He's got so many songs, and it's a lot of stories in his songs. I love the storytelling aspect of his songs. So
it's a good one.
And there's some fun stuff in there too. So that would be my choice.
Yeah, good.
Mine, it's hard to narrow it down to one because it really depends on my mood. So, like, what kind of
Oh, no, you can
mood?
pick one. No, you got one.
Pick one.
I would say it would end up being Mumford & Sons.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
That's a good one.
It's, like you said, there's a lot of story, and I love the harmonies, and I love the lyrics
For
in a lot
sure.
of the songs. I've seen them in concert live a few times, and it hits what they're singing about hits you even harder when you're there.
Yeah, that's for me. It would be Tom Petty. I'm realizing that's some the kind of music that if I had one style of music, that would be Tom Petty. And I said that he's a little like Bob Dylan, but you can understand him. So that's why I would pick. I can understand what he's saying, so I just follow, sing along. So anyway,
That's
some
awesome.
fun. Thanks for playing along. We have a really important subject to get to today, and Russell, you were kind enough to agree to join us when we started to take on this topic. Go ahead.
Can I? Do you mind if I kind of
No, please.
chime in? So Jim and I were, we peruse Facebook and see what people are talking about, and back in August, so it's been a few months. Back in August, we ran across a post in the boardroom. And I don't think that it was in Success.
No.
I think it was just in the boardroom, and it was a really it was a post by Amanda Sanchez, who is the person that kind of directs the boardroom. She created it, and it was about talking about how lenders are clamping down on dealers and how it's creating a struggle, and how a lot of dealers are feeling the pinch, and what can we do? And so I was reading through all of these things, because this is something that we're hearing from other places, and it just lots of good insight with what people were thinking. And then Russell chimes in and says something that stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, that is one of the most beautiful, like thinking outside of our own little world and box perspectives, that it's Russell, it really, I love your wife. And
he inspired it. So that's the comment.
Yeah. If you would tell me a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about that conversation you were having with your wife, and how it came up and all of that.
Well, she's very analytical and likes the psychology of why people do what they do. So whenever she saw the post in there, she was like, people need to look within, right? I mean, we as dealers need to look within. Everything that we do, whether it's from lending standpoint, from an insurance standpoint, from anything that we do in our business, if we would just look within, we would see that everything goes towards an end, right? I mean, meaning like in this case, it was going towards that we are lenders too, right? So you want something from your lender, and we're borrowers from them. So our customers are borrowers from us. So there's no difference in between that. If you think that you're different than your customer is, then you're not. You're a borrower as well. How you handle that is a different situation. So that was the conversation that we went through. And
I think for those who didn't see the post from Amanda was, obviously in her position as a CPA, she was talking to folks about it's really important to communicate with your lenders. And I forget all the points that she brought forward there, but the idea was dealers working with their lenders, and times are getting, more difficult, and some dealers are up against I'm paraphrasing now, but basically if you think about being up against the, covenant barriers and those kind of things, then as she was really suggesting, we really need to communicate, and be cooperative with our lenders. And then you chimed in and basically said, my wife brought forward the idea that we could take that same approach to our relationship as dealers with our customers.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of the backstory on that, and that's the premise. And it really is a really kind of pivotal thing to think about at a time like this. And so I want to share, Russell, the Facebook results that we got. We just put a poll out yesterday evening, and did it in both the BHPH Success Group and the boardroom. And there were about 80 respondents overnight. And it's interesting to see, for those who can't see that screen very well, the gray area are the ones who responded. So let me read the question, I guess, first. It says, in light of recent economic struggles, how has your approach to payments and collection enforcement shifted, if any, or if at all? And 18% said they're being more flexible. 30% said no change. And 52% said they're clamping down. So it kind of is an interesting thing to observe. And there's just so many elements to this. What do you think, Russell, when you see that?
It surprises me that 52% are clamping down. So I am in the more flexible group. And the reason I say clamping down is a bad idea right now is because I don't care, over the years of my 20 groups and all of that stuff, if you are the guy in collections that asks for keys or cash, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get the keys back every time.
Yep.
So clamping down, again, this would be going back to our borrower lender situation. Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to be a little more flexible, if you're wanting your cash, you got to be more flexible. Do the deferments, do the extensions, do the things that it makes you want the cash, not the car. And I'm stealing that from Brent.
Yes.
So, that's the one thing that I think you have to do in this clientele. Now, the caveats to that are, if you haven't had communication in 30 days, then you're going to have to go ahead and repossess that car. But, the being more flexible up front, sending out I'm doing more messaging with my customers now than I've done in a long time. Mm-hmm. The collectors are doing as far as they can. And then I'm taking over and saying, look, this is Russell, I'm the owner. What can I do to help you?
I love that.
So I have sent a bunch of those questions, those messages out.
Yeah, I love that. And when you say, well, if they haven't communicated with 30 days or for 30 days, if they're in a pinch, they're going to communicate less unless they feel like they can communicate. And how do we do that?
A lot of that has to do with how we've approached them leading up to that point. And then also, the more past due they get, Russell, and that's been your experience, that the more past due they get, the more afraid they are and the less likely they are to respond to a phone call or what have you. So yeah, there's a lot of elements in that. And I love that, your wife is interested in the behavior part. It's something that we obviously look at. And sometimes I think people hear what we talk about through White Hat Wednesday and they think, man, what a couple of bleeding hearts, Jim and Michelle are over there.
Or Pollyannas.
Yeah. Well, it's, but I can also look at the business element of this. So when I look at your decision to be flexible with people, I'm hearing others dealers on Facebook and some of in conjunction with this thread are saying, my problem is I can't even get a customer to give $1,000 down. So now the question is, okay, so I'm gonna clamp down on customers. I'm gonna be really strict. I'm gonna say keys or cash. I'm gonna get keys. And now what? The car's gonna sit on the back row because I can't get the down payment I'm looking for to finance it to somebody else. It's like, why not cooperate with the customer that's already in the car? And so this is kind of where it comes about for me, is like there's some business elements to this to really consider, what are the ramifications? But I really think when I see this is 52% are saying they want to clamp down, Russell. So I wonder how they feel. Do they want their lender to approach them in the same way? And then, the other thing, I see this and I think, okay, so how many of those dealers who are clamping down are doing it because they're up against their borrowing base and that account becomes ineligible at a certain point, right? And so that can factor into this.
This is also a conversation for lenders and the the buy here, pay here dealer lenders. Mm-hmm. Is we're in a crunch. We're in a tight spot. And so do you want to clamp down or be more flexible as long as we're communicating with you so that we can all weather this storm together?
and I'll answer for them. I'm very good friends with Primalind and with Spartan. You know, Rambo's a great guy.
Mhm.
Paxton and Todd Yates. I mean, those guys are wonderful, and I'll speak for them and tell you that they're going to work with you if you're communicating with them.
If you're communicating.
Sure.
But that's the key. I mean, that's the key to anything. If I can't communicate with my customers, I'm not going to be able to work with them. I'm not going to be able to be able to make sure that they're doing their stuff to make a payment arrangement. So you know, with between Primalind and Spartan and those guys, look, they're struggling with their lenders. You know, their money has gone up. So you know, everybody's got their people that they answer to, and you're going to have to work with them. You're going to have to be adults and work with them. Somebody just put up a deal about clamping down. Maybe it's more in the underwriting. Well, you know, if you didn't read the question properly, then this is a collections problem, not at this point, not an underwriting. Underwriting is a different subject, but I would think that if we're clamping down on underwriting, then that's another conversation we need to have.
Sure.
But the collections part of it, I don't see the clamping down and dropping the hammer on our customers right now.
Mm-hmm. Good. I took a look through the list of people and how they responded, and I can say I purposefully sought out dealers that I know have used external financing, and I know who were in business through the 08 period. So, right, we saw a lot of, you know, financial crunch through the late 2000s, and so I can see at least 3 dealers here who were in that category who voted more flexible. Okay, and then there were a few others that were in the no change, which you can make a case for that if you're already being flexible and cooperative, and then you know your customer's going to appreciate consistency. And I think you know you communicate and work with people. And I think you touched on it there, Russell. I think we have to remember a lot of these lenders in our space have money behind them, so they kind of have their own covenants that they have to think about, and I think their ability to navigate their own covenants would have a lot to do with our communication as a dealer and what kind of strategy we're invoking, you know, and kind of a way to write it out. Because we've heard from some dealers that they think we're kind of at the bottom of the financial, you know, crunch here. And I'd like to believe that. My concern is that there could be, you know, it could get worse before it gets better. And so I think we just have to be prepared and have a strategy, you know, for how to go into this. And you know, I think it's just interesting, like you say, to see that only 18% are reporting being more flexible and cooperative. My fear is that that's coming from their own financial pressures.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. So, I mean,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
So going back to when, you know, I started out borrowing from, and it was Primalind, I'm going to go ahead and name drop, but you know, whenever I started borrowing from those guys, I remember going to a 20 group back then and David telling me, saying, look, this number here does not look good. You know, you need to be ahead of this, and you know, you need to call Paxton as soon as you get back and tell him this is what you need to work on. You're aware of it, and moving forward. So, you know, that was always my contention was you have to communicate those issues before they find them.
Right.
You bring them up first, and I get it with our customers. It's a little bit more difficult because they're having to bounce it between 4 different people. And I totally understand that. So whenever you're, you know, I'm only dealing with one person. So getting ahead of that is a key thing, I believe, with any lender, and telling them, hey, this is where I'm screwing up, or this is what is screwed up, and this is how I'm going to fix it.
Right.
I appreciated what Jim shared with those that have been around since the last big crunch, and then their perspective on this. And there's a lot.
They're still here, by the way.
They're still here. They're still here. They're still in business. It was a rough time for everybody. I didn't live in the buy here, pay here world, but it was a rough time for everybody, for banks and lenders, and I mean, just everybody. And I appreciate that that's where they're coming at this, and younger dealers that haven't experienced something like this, or when I say younger, newer to the business. That there might be like a knee-jerk reaction because it's like and it's because you don't know what to expect. It's like all the trends look like X, and to be able to lean on the wisdom of those that have experienced it before and said, okay, here are the things that you need to do, but it's not a time to be harder on your customers. It's a time to figure out how to communicate more effectively with them, and how can and you for you to communicate with your lenders as well, and just really come together. This is like we're all in it together. And I'm not a person that brings out a lot of um uh considered religious type things, but there's a saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I think that this topic is a really beautiful place to apply that. Do unto others, do unto your customers as you would have your lenders do unto you. And so help open up those communication lines, and be there to help as much as you possibly can.
I'll let Russell speak to that.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100% on that. And, but I guess I will add to that, we still have to make money, right?
Yeah.
True.
But the golden rule is the golden rule. But you have to give the customer every opportunity to help themselves.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to give me every opportunity to help them.
Yes.
Right.
And so once I can, and again, it's the communication part of it. And I between our lenders and borrowers, everything is the same on that. You have to be willing to work. And I can guarantee you all the lenders, SDA, all of them. I mean, they're working with their people. They don't want our portfolios back. I can promise you they don't want that. They want the cash just as the same as we do. As long as you can show them a path to get that cash, then we're good.
I think that path part is important to me. Like when I think about this, if I were in a lender's seat and I'm looking at a number of dealers who are, struggling or in default, I would be looking for a strategy. Like I think, that I would be looking for the dealer to come forward and say, what is your game plan? How do you want to turn this corner? And I think you could find more cooperation if you had a clear-cut strategy to get from A to B. And so that's kind of what I would be encouraging. That's what I heard you say, that, you referenced David. For those who don't know, that would be David Brotherton, a 20 group moderator. And so he's, got a lot of experience and said, this is something that lenders are going to look at. And so we think things like collateral recovery rate would be among the things that we would be watchful of, and not going to be surprised to see it dipping. We're hearing about delinquency being up. We're hearing about bankruptcy being up. So you're not going to be surprised to see accounts falling out of borrowing base eligibility, which starts to apply pressure to dealers. And so I think just having a strategy to map it out. And if I'm the lender, I want to hear that the business owner has got a game plan and they're being proactive about it,
Well, with interest expense going up for everybody, our charge-offs are going up. So, the path that I think is the easiest one for us dealers to take is cut your expenses.
Yeah.
Cut your expenses. And that's the one that they want to hear, and show them that they're doing it. I've got a number of my friends, me included, that have cut expenses year over year. And so you have to do that to be able to go through there. So that allows me to be more flexible, right? I mean, and maybe the clamping down, that's the pressures that they're feeling because they haven't cut the expenses. They didn't do all of those things a year ago when we saw this coming. So not that I'm the all knowing and my crystal ball wasn't better than anybody else's. I kind of had a feeling, and with our 20 groups and all of that stuff, we had a feeling this was going to happen. And we've been riding that wave for a while, and we're feeling the pains now.
I'm hearing another plug for a 20 group. It's just because it is such a valuable asset to dealers' businesses.
It is
to have that kind of group that you can meet with.
And as I hear you talk about that cost cutting strategy, I'm aware that, in our business, Russell, we have a bit of a thing that other businesses don't always face, which is, profit's very different from cash flow in our line of work, right? And so we don't repay our lenders from profit. That just really doesn't help us much at the end of the day, unless we're selling that paper, or whatever. Then it doesn't solve anything with the lender. So I think, the charge-offs we may experience. The question is, what's our cash strategy, to kind of navigate through this? So it'll be an interesting time, and I think, what we're just seeing here with this poll results is that, it's another area where we're going to see some of the dealers, I'm afraid, that are in that, clamping down strategy are going to find, as you said, a lot more repos. Their back row is going to fill up with more repos, and then the question is, now what? Where do you go from there? So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time and a curious thing to watch.
Yes.
But yeah, so go
Some
ahead.
of the clamping down part, I see a lot of people that are going to be doing that and getting inventory. So the good side about that is they're going to have inventory, right? So they're going to save cash. I don't know. I mean, I do a spreadsheet, and I've done it for the last 8 years. And, you look at on the repos, did I really make money on them when I repoed them? And I will tell you, yes. The majority of mine have made money. So I know the charge-offs look horrible on paper, but cash over cash, I'm still to the good. Just looks worse on the P&L.
Right. No, I get it.
But I still don't want to. I don't want a bunch of repos. I'd rather them pay off. Right. I mean, that's the ultimate goal for the consumer, is to pay off. I'm going to do a couple of strategies here for tax time this year, because my gut tells me that I don't think we're going to have a huge tax time. I think people are going to spend that money elsewhere. And meaning, I think it's going to be about like it was last year or the year before. I think it's not going to be huge. So, the strategy I'm going to use, I may be working with the customers to maybe lower percentage APR, maybe lowering, taking a big cash payment on a tax deal to do something. That's my strategy to help offset some of that. Try to help the customer out, try to get them to pay longer.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned tax refund season. I think that we're at a time of year when it's appropriate to work that into your strategy, for the next 6 months. And you may be right, it may be lower, but whatever customers do experience, it's probably helpful to communicate with your customers between now and then and say, it's an easy thing to say. We understand it. We sometimes find that our customers struggle to make the connection. Like, without that car, all the other things that you're looking to do. I mean, your car gets you to work, and your job is what pays your electric bill, and everything else is like, we kind of have to get better at educating our customers on some of those things and make sure that they do make good choices when the dollars do come at tax refund season, that we're able to kind of help bridge that thing and get there. And so a couple things I want to share. Our dealer friend Tommy Brandis out in Pennsylvania has been in business 30 plus years. He's been through multiple ups and downs, and so he's somebody who's seen a lot. And we've heard Tommy on our broadcast describe customers as survivors. We see that same sort of thing. And I want to share a post. I'm just going to read it the way the guy wrote it, and we don't mention names because these things are in private groups, and so it can't be sure what they want to say out there, on a public format. But basically, this dealer says, "I've been saying this all along. I personally deal with and know every one of my accounts. I see them struggling. I get the phone calls myself. I see it firsthand, and I feel for them. I don't let them ever get too far behind, but I have to give some of them credit. I don't know how they do it. Could you imagine having to get by on their income with kids?" So basically, it's this idea that it's kind of how we view the customer. It's the lens that we see the customer through, and our willingness to cooperate, recognizing full well we all have financial limits that we have to work within, or I should say most of us do. Maybe there's some out there that don't have that challenge, but for the most part, we kind of have to be prepared to work with folks. And before I take this slide down, we have some people that will see the broadcast on audio. So before we take this down, I just wanted to kind of recap the numbers. 18% said more flexible, 30% said no change, and 52% said clamping down. was the approach that they're bringing to, their collections process now. But, I feel like, Russell, we covered it pretty well. If you have any
Thank
other
you.
thoughts there as we wrap it up, I love, and say hello to the missus.
Yes.
We're really appreciating her perspective on the thing, and glad that this topic, came up in the way that it did.
And thank you. I'm sure she's listening as well. She's a stalker on there, so she's and she'll be listening. And but I think we can take away from this what her strategy in a lot of these things is. Look at the psychology of it.
Yeah,
I think that is a big part of it, and being able to, how can you best get your customer to the finish line?
Mm-hmm.
And is at this point, if they paid you for a couple of years, and like my strategy that I'm fixing to do is, if I need to lower the APR for a payment for during tax time, and lower their payment down by 30 or 50 bucks a month, is what I'm looking at maybe doing. Is that going to hurt me long term? I don't know. Yeah. But I have a feeling that if I can get more of them to the finish line, I'm going to be better off, even if I lowered the APR, even if I lowered the monthly payment.
Right.
Because not all of them are going to do it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's some of the strategies that we need to incorporate, and maybe look at helping our customers in more of a just more. I think we have to do more. And Laurel, she would be, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, if you look at Amazon making gazillions of dollars and stuff, why don't they do more? And they probably do more than I think they do. And I know she would probably say, when's enough?
Yeah.
And I know y'all have heard me say that before on here, but enough's enough on some of these things. We make a good living. It's time to give back.
We had a conversation about that on Monday about, and they touched a little bit on that, if getting an extra blank from fees or whatever is what's going to put milk on your table, then you should probably do it. But those extra fees are what are going to keep milk off of some people's tables.
Right. And I saw where Tyler had said that as well, and I appreciate his insight on that, because he's very, very on point on that.
Yeah, there's a broader way to maybe think about this. And I heard you say, and we'll be talking again to another dealer next week about the decision to lower interest rate. One thing I might suggest is that dealers contemplate, rather than lowering interest rate, maybe look at creating a program where the customers who pay on time or perform get credits back of some kind. So that part of the thought process for me would be, I think we all understand that when we maintain a higher interest rate, that paper that we own has a little more value. So I think I might keep the interest rate where it is, but create a program where those who pay, get some credits back on their account towards something like that, so that we can incorporate a reward side of this. I think what we find in Buy Here, Pay Your perspective, Russell, is that what we see across the industry is, in the collection side, and this is really important in the behavior part and the psychology part that you're saying that Laurel mentioned, is like, when we look at that, it's like we see that dealers often use the punishment side, but they don't use the reward side enough to reward good behavior. And so this is an opportunity, I think, as we move forward, is to create those kind of credits and be able to see. I did say Laurel's name, so most people that know Russell also know Laurel.
Hugo Sanchez piped in, is like, Laurel would have been a better guest, but Russell did all right.
Ask her next time.
We would love to have her on today with you, so that's fun. But I just think that's what we're seeing, and so we think that there's an opportunity to, be flexible, find solutions. And I might also suggest, one thing we've been talking to our clients about is, you talk about the finish line, having your customers reach the end, and that's a beautiful outlook. I would say, I think it's appropriate for dealers to develop a strategy like along the line of, what can I do to get this customer through 24 months? And then let's reassess. So we can be in a position to, maybe at that point, we're in a better position to write off some of the balance and trade them into something, or whatever that looks like. But if we just really got hyper focused on, what does it look like for 24 months? If I can carry these customers 24 months, we can reassess our financial picture, at that point in time, and the world will have changed, a decent amount in 24 months.
Hopefully for the better.
Yeah. And so, we're in a position then to reevaluate and decide what we want to do with those accounts at that time. But I think that's something to contemplate for dealers that are listening. So.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yeah,
You're
good
always a
conversation.
pleasure. And maybe one of these days we'll have Laurel on the show too. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you think about this, Laurel?
Oh, Lord. Be ready if you ask that question.
Right on. I'm going to put you backstage, but stick around for just a second so we can give you a proper goodbye when we're done.
I will.
All right.
And
Well, that
just
was a
what we
good
thought it would be.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
important.
last night, as we were getting ready for bed, it's like tomorrow's conversation is going to be pretty rich.
Yeah, it's important stuff.
Yeah,
Like
it is important stuff.
It's something that we know that applies to, any creditor debtor relationship really. And so it's going to be a time to navigate. I think in our industry, we have an opportunity to, be successful by bringing a little longer term outlook.
And I think, the golden rule, different way of saying be fair and firm and just envelop all of that with kindness
Good.
and be kind in the process of being fair and firm.
Sure.
So,
Very good.
all
Why
right,
don't we
everybody.
wrap up there? Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, folks. And remember, next Wednesday, we have
Wake
Seth
up.
Merrifield joining us as a dealer himself who's navigating this.
Yeah. Have a great day, everybody. And we will chat with you on Friday. Thanks again so much again for joining us.